Hello, this is Just Listen, hosted by George. Today is August the 4th, 2025. I hope everybody is still having a great summer. So, today I want to talk about the U.S. government policy on what the big, beautiful bill is actually going to do for hardworking taxpayers. I want to start with a little bit of background here to why I wanted, excuse me, to talk about this subject in the first place. So there is a perception out there, pretty big one, that this big beautiful bill that was signed into law July 4th only benefits the very wealthy. Now, if you listen to the mainstream media, first thing that I'm keeping to have to figure out is who are they calling rich? Is it two people married making over $150,000 combined? Is it 200,000? Is it combined income of $80,000? Who's considered rich? Is it LeBron James? Is it Elon Musk? Because in a lot of those conversations, they pinpoint them and say, well, they're not paying enough in taxes and they want them taxed. So I want to give you the facts of this affects regular people. Now, one of the big ones is no tax on tips. Now, being upfront with it, this part of the law is only effective until 2028. So what they're going to have to do around 2027-ish is Congress is going to have to do another bill to make sure that this can continue. Why did they do it that way? Well, for some reason in Congress, meaning Congress, the House of Representatives, and the Senate, a lot of your senators and representatives didn't want this to be permanent. And you should contact them if you really want to know why they wanted to just make it for 3 years. Now, there's also going to be no tax on overtime. This affects regular people. Now, of course, they have stipulations of how much money how much it is, and if you're filing jointly and all that stuff, but it's still going to help out working families. Now, here's one that's interesting that probably a lot of us didn't know about. No tax on car loan interest. Now, this one is effective from 2025 through 2028. Individuals may deduct interest paid on a loan used to purchase a qualified vehicle, provided the vehicle is purchased for personal use and meets the other eligibility criteria. All right, so if you're leasing a car, it doesn't qualify. Now, I'm not going to get into the weeds in this because you can go and see if you're qualified. The biggest item to know of, it has to be a car that was made in the United States in the end. And in the end means that could be parts from Europe, Mexico, somewhere like that. But when they finished making the car, it was assembled in the United States. So that's the only stipulation. Now, the next one is deduction for seniors. So this one works the same way. From 2025 to 2028, individuals who are 65 and older may claim an additional deduction of $6,000. This new deduction is in addition to the current additional standard deduction for seniors under the existing law. Right? Now, this one always tickles me because if you look at the age of some of the people in the House of Representatives and the Senate, they're seniors, yet they don't seem to want to give seniors any breaks in the first place. And I've always been fascinated that they don't consider themselves seniors, or they don't consider how this would affect someone who is their same age. So that's interesting to me that they just aren't for doing things like that. Okay, so now so these are the personal things, and there's a lot more of them, but again, um, I don't want to bore you with 10,000 things. Now, let me tell you something. This is how divided the country is. So when they passed the big beautiful bill in Congress in May in the House of Representatives, the vote was 215 to 214. And then in the Senate, it was 51 to 50. Now, what does that tell us? Yeah, it tells us that government is still very, very divided. And it also tells you that there is a lot of disagreement philosophy in this country. And that tells you that some of what was passed in here, if you have concerns, if you're on the other side, probably won't, when the other side would take over, would be changed right back. And I would also submit to you that we have to figure out a way to compromise with our fellow citizens in this country and not pass something because you don't like who's delivering the message. Now that's the social part of that, which I don't talk about a lot or don't want to. But that's why these things are taking so long. And the narrative coming from the mainstream media makes you think that all Republicans are bad because they vote for it. Nope. If it's 51-50 in the Senate, a lot of them voted with the Democrats, and the vice president, as you know, cast the tie-breaking vote. Just like when Biden was in there and they were trying to pass through things, the vice president at the time, Vice President Harris, would do the deciding vote. Okay, so now I want to talk about Medicaid because this keeps coming up. So here are the facts about Medicaid. So it impacts several states. Increased Medicaid and ACA coverage loss for noncompliance with work requirements, eligibility changes, and limits on coverage for certain non-citizens. Now, if you look at that, it's not cutting Medicaid for the majority of the American population, right? So, work requirement. Why is it in the past that people weren't trying to find work and they were using Medicaid? I think that is fair, right? And contrary to what the mainstream media says, this is specifically talking about able-bodied people who weren't looking for work, who were using the system. And certain non-citizens were using Medicaid and this ACA coverage, which is a type of insurance. That's what was impacted. This notion that they were just arbitrarily cutting everybody's Medicaid is just not true. The second thing, limited ability to fund the state share of Medicaid and overall decreased federal funding for state Medicaid programs. You know why they did that? for the same reason that I just said in this first bullet. There were people who were able bodied that can work that were receiving Medicaid and they weren't actively looking for work. The other thing, certain non citizens. Now, they made it a pretty word, non citizens, and basically they're talking about people who come into the country illegally, right? Because if you are here legally and you fit the category of you are looking for work, you can't find it, and you need insurance, Medicaid still covers you. So we have to start digging into some of these, dig into the facts. The other big thing is rural hospitals. We keep hearing that they're just going to close them and that it's going to hurt people, Americans living in these rural areas. Now, the states, the law really changed how money is allocated for Medicaid to these rural areas. So they established a rural health transformation program. So if you got about 30 minutes, you can look that up, state eligibility and all of that stuff. The target of that was to keep non-citizens from going to these rural areas and then applying for Medicaid. Now, there were other problems with them getting doctors to come to these rural areas. I'm 61. They've had that problem for 40 years. So that's nothing new. And the fact that it's being reported that only poor Americans in those areas are the money is being taken away from them for rural hospitals. It's just not true. They are trying to stop the people who are non-citizens, right? Who go to these areas and are applying for all of these benefits. That's the real reason. So both of those areas are covered. Now, they also are really, the next area is just Medicaid in general. So these other two are talking about Medicaid parts of it, but they also say so if you're between 19 and 64, like I said earlier, to qualify for at least 80 hours a month. This is mandatory for individuals, right? Pregnant women, those with serious medical condition, tribal members, parents, caregivers of dependent children, 13 years under, or with a disability. They are not part of that. So that means if you are an able-bodied person, male or female, and you're not disabled, you're not pregnant, you don't have a serious medical condition, you're not a tribal person, you have to have at least 80 hours a month. Now think about that. 80 hours working, 40-hour weeks when I was working. So if you spread that out, the 80 hours, that's not a lot of time. That's working really part time. That's the only change that they made to Medicaid. So I wanted to highlight that again to let you know that it didn't affect everyone, first of all, because the mainstream media was like, I was watching the show and they're like, yeah, well, it's affecting people with disabilities too, and that's just not true. Not true. So these are the facts that I'm passing on to you. And when we dig into the details, we see that it's going to benefit everyone. This is Just Listen, hosted by George. Let me know what you think.